Well, good evening everyone and welcome back. Cumberland Outdoorsman here with you again in yet another video in my 22 series. About 2 weeks ago or so, I ran across a little rifle in an online auction that kind of caught my attention, and I've already got 3 of them, the same model, in my collection, so I didn't really need it for my own use, but I just had a feeling about the gun and I went ahead and bid on it and I won the auction. A good friend of mine that is an FFL holder brought it in for me, and I went over there and picked it up and brought it back. Now remember, I have not had the gun in my hands. I didn't actually see it in real life. I just saw 2 photographs of it and I took a chance on it. And one of the reasons I bought the gun is to make this video so that I could share with you my experience of buying a used gun, sight unseen. Like I said, I never had it in my hands before, and just see how well it performs. Now, it's a model that you're pretty well familiar with because I've covered this before in the past. In fact, my very first video, I went squirrel hunting with this same model Remington rifle, and I took you along with me. And it's most likely my favorite of all 22 rifles ever made, and that's the Remington Model 581. Here's the little gun here. I'll show it to you. Now, I didn't have this scope on here. It had an old Weaver scope, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I wanted to do a little testing with it, so I wanted a scope that had a little bit more magnification and a wider field of view, so I put this one on there. And I really haven't done much to the gun other than clean it. Now, when I first got it, there was some rust freckling right here, some speckles of rust, and I took some Hoppe's number 9 and some fine steel wool and went over that and polished it out, and it turned out just beautiful. I didn't know what condition the barrel was in, that is the bore inside. Outside, the gun looks pretty good. You know, there's hardly any rust at all, other than what was on the trigger guard here, and there's one tiny little speck of rust right there on the front of the receiver there that I missed, but I think I can get that off with the steel wool and Hoppe's number 9. But initially what I did is I took a wet patch and I went to push it through the bore, a patch soaked in Hoppe's gun cleaner, and I couldn't hardly get it through there, and I thought, oh boy, I don't know what I've got here. So anyway, I plugged the barrel at the back and I poured some gun cleaner down into the bore and let it soak for a little while, and then I ran the patch through there, and then I ran a bronze brush through there that was soaked, and with every pass it was smoother and smoother. And then I ran some more cleaning patches through there, and finally a dry patch, and to my pleasant surprise, the barrel turned out just as shiny as a new dime. The rifling is very strong. As you can see, the muzzle crown is in really good condition. Overall, the gun's been pretty well taken care of. Now, this one has a walnut stock that's factory. When I looked up the barrel code that's stamped here on the side, I saw that it was made in August of 1967. I was 3 years old when this gun was made, so it's almost as old as I am, and it's definitely in better shape than I am. But like I said, I've always liked this model of rifle. It's bolt action, locks up good and tight, and inherently they're extremely accurate. They will hold their own with nearly all new rifles, you know, modern rifles. And as you'll see here in a moment, I'm going to shoot a 5-shot group. Now, I've done nothing to this gun. All I did was clean the barrel. You know, the gun's in bone stock condition. It hasn't been bedded. The trigger hasn't been worked on. Nothing has been done to modify the action, the barrel, or the trigger. Everything is pretty much the way it came from the factory, other than the scope. So I'm going to shoot a 5-shot group using some SK Standard Plus ammunition. I know I've spoken about this ammunition in my previous videos, but if you haven't tried this stuff, give it a try because it's really, really good ammunition. Now I've got another Remington 581 here on the table that belongs to my uncle. It's not mine, but the reason it's here is because I fitted a walnut stock that I refinished myself. He wanted this stock on there, and I saved it for him because I know how much pride he has in this gun, and I wanted to put a nice stock on it for him. It's got a 4x32 Valor scope on it, and this is another fine shooter, folks. Really good shooting rifle. This is a little bit newer gun than the previous one that I just showed you, but a very good shooter nonetheless. Here are two 5-shot groups that I shot before I made the video. This one here, I had to sight it in. It was shooting a little bit off to the right, so I moved the crosshairs over, and that's 4 shots right there all together at 25 yards. And then I moved the target down to 50 yards, and you can see they dropped just a little bit from the 25 yard zero, but still all of them clustered right in there. You know, that group right there is the size of a nickel. And that's using CCI, standard velocity. I went to Walmart the other day and I bought some of this. And by the way, ammunition is becoming more and more readily available. So I bought 3 boxes of this. There was a 3-box limit, and shot that group with CCI ammunition. And let me say something about that. This is standard velocity, standard loading for CCI. These are very good rounds, especially for the price that you pay now. Now they make better ammunition like their green tag, but you know, I gotta hand it to CCI, especially at a time like this during the ammunition crunch when they're cranking out a lot of ammo, trying to meet the demand of everyone, and they're still making top quality ammo like this that prints groups of a half an inch like that at 50 yards. That speaks a lot for the quality control over there in Idaho where they're making this ammunition. My hat's off to CCI. They're doing a wonderful job. But anyway, I've got this target here that I shot at 50 yards using the SK Standard Plus, and that's using the old rifle that I just bought. And as you can see, that 5-shot group right there can easily be covered with a dime right there. That covers all 5 shots. So, you know, you take an old gun like that, they can group all them bullets into one ragged hole like that at 50 yards without doing anything to it. It's just bone stock. That's a testimony to just how good a quality these old guns are. You know, I don't know what it is about the 580 actions. The barrels are not particularly heavy, but they lock up tight because they have those 6 locking lugs. Here, I'll show you. As you can see, this is the bolt. There's 3 pairs of locking lugs that lock the bolt very firmly inside the action. They're rear locking lugs. There's the bolt face. That's showing the bolt handle and the cocking piece back here. Mosquito here trying to interfere with our video, but anyway, that's the construction of the bolt. And when you lock it down, this stays in place, and the bolt comes down 60 degrees and locks everything very tightly into the action. They have a very fast lock time, and actually the trigger on the one I just bought is rather stiff. You know, it's going to need some work. And I'm going to go through that little gun and show you exactly how to remove the trigger, service it, and put it back together. There's a right way and a wrong way. I'm going to show you the right way. Because a lot of times you'll buy these old guns and the triggers will be frozen up because the grease inside is hardened. They've been sitting around for so long, you know, and the gun's not going to do you any good unless the trigger's working properly. So I'm going to show you how to go through that and clean it out, service it, and put it back together where it'll work flawlessly. I'm also going to do a refinishing job on this particular stock because it's got some blemishes in it, as you can see here. And this here looks like it's been sitting against some kind of chemical or whatever that got on it and raised some of the finish. But it's got some beautiful wood in it, actually. You know, some real nice figure. I don't know if you can see that or not. But the first year production of the Remington 581, they were all supplied with American black walnut stocks. The action's a little bit different, just slightly, from newer models. But subsequent years, they came out with maple and I think beech and some kind of mahogany stock, you know, in years following that. But the first years, they all came with these American walnut stocks. The action itself is fairly smooth, you know, easy to operate. The safety is right where it needs to be. And the trigger is, you know, just perfect, in perfect reach. The way the pistol grip is designed, and the gun just balances really well. So anyway, enough about that. Right now we're going to do a little shooting. I've got some cans down here, I've got some steel targets, and let's see, we're going to try some hollow point ammunition as well, some high velocity hollow point. So we're going to blow up some water filled cans and knock over some steel targets. So let's do some shooting here. Okay. First of all, we got 3 cans right there at 40 yards. I want to knock these down with some high velocity CCI mini mags. Hollow points. Three cans there, and all I need is 3 shots, so we'll see how well these work out of this little rifle. Here we go. We're going from left to right. Wow. Well, that knocked the other 2 over, so I'm going to have to refill those. Be back in just a minute. Okay, I set these 2 cans further apart because the explosion from that little hollow point bullet produces kind of a shock wave from all that water exploding that it knocks the other cans over, so I got them separated a little bit further apart. Anyway, here we go with the orange can. And the one on the right. You can hear a real loud audible pop when that bullet makes impact. I've got 1 can down there at 100 yards. And we'll see if I can hit it from here using a CCI mini mag hollow point. I'm gonna load 1 bullet here. All right. That was a hit. I heard that pop from here. Well, folks, the first shot I suspected fell a little bit to the right, so I held right on the left side of that can, and the second shot center punched it, as you can well see here. That's at 100 yards with the CCI mini mag. So, you know, 22 can be quite effective even out to 100 yards and beyond. What I've got back here are some steel targets. I'm going to be focusing in on them and shooting those with some standard velocity loads, and show you just how consistently accurate these old Remingtons can be. Okay, it's getting a little bit dark already. Evening is falling, but I'm going to shoot some of these steel targets I've got here. I've got a bear on the left, and then a swinging target just right there under his chin. It's actually in front of the bear. And then I've got two squirrels, a bunny rabbit, and a wild boar, and then there's a Sasquatch that's sneaking in from the right there. But let me get to shooting here before we lose light and see just how well this old Remington will perform. Well folks, as you can tell, the sun's going down, so I'm going to have to close out this video and give you some final thoughts in regards to this fine old Remington that I picked up just recently. I don't consider myself actually being lucky to find it because, you know, they're still out there, they're still available, and if you are in the market for one, make sure that they're in fairly good condition, you know, that it's been pretty well taken care of. And if you can, ask the seller if you could look down the barrel. If you want to, you know, you could probably bring a cleaning rod and throw a patch down through the barrel to make sure the barrel's in good shape. But if the gun's been taken care of and it's any of the 580 series of rifles, the 580, 581, or 582, or even the earlier ones, you know, like the 510, the 511, the 512, those are all good shooting rifles. These I like a little bit better because they have a more advanced trigger mechanism and a much stronger lockup system and much faster lock time. So inherently, these are more accurate guns. And if you have the money and you run across a model 541, such as 541T or a 541S, which is a really fancy little 22 rifle, those are going to be fine shooters too. And I think the 541 series have match grade barrels with matched chambers, so they're a little bit finicky as to how they load certain ammunition. You know, some ammunition just will not feed in those guns and won't shoot very well. So you're pretty much limited to standard velocity or standard length cartridges. By that I mean not hyper velocity cartridges such as a Stinger or whatever, but you know, if you have the money to buy one of those and you want a really fine 22 bolt action rifle, I would recommend that. Another thing I didn't mention was that these make fine family heirlooms. You know, if you have children or grandchildren that you would like to pass your guns down to, these are great little training rifles to teach them about gun safety and safe gun handling. You know, they're bolt action, so you have control of every round that goes in the gun. They're not like an auto loading rifle. You have to manually load each cartridge. The safety is right there where it needs to be. Keep it engaged till you're ready to fire. Flip it off, and then the trigger is within easy reach. The pistol grip is fairly slender in design, you know, so younger folks and women find these rifles easy to shoot and very smooth operating bolts. You know, they're just flawless. I mean, they just close and lock up so well. The triggers, they could use some improvement, and I'm going to show you how to do that in an upcoming video, in a safe way to do it. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. I'm going to show you the right way. So anyway, I don't know what else I could say about this whole gun, but I wanted to bring it to you and just kind of show you how a used rifle like this, that's very old, or relatively old, would perform without doing anything to it, just in bone stock condition. So that if you run across one of these, whether you're at a pawn shop or a gun show or maybe a yard sale or whatever, if it's been well taken care of, rest assured you're going to have a fine shooting little rifle. Also, if you can afford it and it's within your budget, try to find some really good quality ammunition like this SK, you know, and at the very least, get something like this CCI standard velocity. Like I said, this is excellent ammunition. I mean, it'll hold its own with a lot of the higher grade ammos. And, you know, I have no problem using this. They also make the standard velocity loading with a hollow point, so you can use it for small game hunting as well. And it's just as accurate as this, in all of my rifles anyway. Here's an old target that I shot earlier before I started the video. And here you can see that's at 50 yards. You got one shot that went just a little bit high, right next to the bullseye, but all the rest of them fell right there into that tiny little cluster. That's 4 bullets right there, all of them grouping into one hole. And there's another 50-yard group. There's 4 right there all together. One fell a little bit low. And then there's another 50-yard group using CCI standard velocity. That's a testimony to just how accurate that ammunition is when it's shot out of a well-made rifle. You know, it's great stuff. So anyway, I'm going to close out this video by wishing you well. And remember, if you like to go hunting, fishing, camping, shooting, hiking, whatever it may be, I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And until next time, y'all stay safe out there, take care of yourselves, and enjoy the great outdoors. I'll see you.